Rise of the Ronin is approaching like a stealthy samurai. And yeah, I guess there won't be any more big news, but let's check this out for the last time. And hopefully, you can help me decide which game to play first.
Wait the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
Said Team Ninja recently held a preview event for Rise of the Ronin, and they gave industry journalists and content creators early access to the gameplay of Rise of the Ronin, and I've consumed most of the previews, if not all of them, and it seems like the general sentiment is that Rise of the Ronin is indeed the real deal, which makes deciding whether or not to play Rise of the Ronin or Dragons Dogma first on the 22nd very tough. So I have scoured most of the previews, and here is the general consensus, as well as some game details for Rise of the Ronin that you guys should definitely know. So first things first, the game's combat is described as being very skill-based, not too difficult like Neo or other Souls-like games, but it definitely can be difficult at times. It has a focus on
I played both Neo games, and the Neo games in the beginning are pretty rough to understand, but after you get the hint or kind of like the understanding of it, it is not so hard anymore. Plus, you have a lot of different abilities to help you out. And when they say it's kind of like in this range, I guess it is doable.
Parrying and countering attacks. One of the highlights of Rise of the Ronin is the ability to change the character's fighting style. There's multiple different fighting styles. There's also a wide variety of weapons, including the swords, guns, and then the grappling hook that is not only used for traversing the open world map, but it's also going to be utilized in combat. You could just like Scorpion, get over here.
Once again, those fighting styles, they have been also in Neo. Kind of you switch to low easy stance or low stance, high stance, stuff like that, and each of those has like a little bit of a difference how to fight. Plus, you had the same in Ghost of Tsushima, so it's nothing new to the genre, so to speak.
To various enemies. It's super sick, and I cannot wait to try that out. Now, the game also features a branching narrative where players' choice will affect the story. According to the IGN article, Rise of the Ronin's branching storyline has decisions about who you kill or who to spare, and that will influence the allies that you have going into battle. The example that IGN gave was sparing Gonzo instead of killing him. You then find Gonzo up to his usual antics, and you could choose to either have him as an ally or eventually kill him. I'm not exactly sure how in-depth that is, but it seems like there is choices, and the storyline will be branching in at least some regard. I don't think it's going to be
I hope that the game does it well. Does the story part and then the engaging part really well. Because there's a lot of rumors and a lot of like talking. The streets are not alive. The open world is kind of like not packed with anything amazing, and also the graphics. And I guess you can maybe look over it when the story and the decisions are kind of there and decisive. So let's hope.
Situation where there's a ton of endings like Baldur's Gate. I'm sure there's a few core endings, and then from there the decisions you make throughout the open world will affect different side quests, and then the decisions that you make during the main quest line will obviously have an impact for the overall ending of the game. Moving right along, let's talk about the overall open world, as there's kind of some mixed sentiment here. Some of the previews stated that the game felt like it was a really rich open world with a ton of activities and side quests to do, but according to VGC, they said the open world felt repetitive because it requires the players to complete tedious tasks such as hunting down rogue warriors or bands of bandits, and then clearing icons off the map, which they said is similar to what players experience in typical Ubisoft or Warner Brothers games. Now, on the contrary, according to Games Radar, they said that the open world feels vast due to the variety of locations that the player can explore, which includes backwater burrs, sprawling cityscapes, pastoral landscapes, and bustling metropolitan districts. The world is filled with activities such as conversing with NPCs.
So which one it would be, we will see in the end. I hope they put in a lot of, a lot of Japanese nature in it. So that already makes it very different to look. And some temples, some statues. So lovers of samurai culture, Japanese culture, really get it like really joyful feeling out of it. So Yeah, let's hope. It is strange that some people say it like this, some others say it like this.
Quests and riddling towns of nefarious visitors. Speaking of the NPC activities, according to Games Radar, they discussed a mechanic called human bonds, which will allow the player to deepen their relationship with certain NPCs. And then finally, the biggest thing that I've seen out of all of the reviews is that you can pet cats in Rise of the Ronin. So if that's not a Game of the Year worthy experience, I don't know what is. Now, another concern that I've seen is that the game's graphics aren't the greatest, and it could definitely pass for a previous generation game. But from all the positives that we've seen, like there's an intriguing story, it's open world Japan, the combat looks intense, not too difficult but not too easy, the movement looks incredible, it's co-op multiplayer for missions. I don't know if it's going to be co-op multiplayer for the open world. The game will play at 60 FPS, it'll have a crime and heat system. It all looks really exciting. So moving,
I am interested into this crime system because you probably want to try out the other side of the coin, to be a little bit of an evil guy. And it's like when it's too repetitive and like you run around and then some people or some Ronin come out and kind of want to fight you, that's maybe a little bit of annoying in the end. But otherwise, it is probably maybe gets you into a very hard situation. So you you kind of decide how hard the game can be for you.
right along, the PlayStation blog recently went hands-on with Rise of the Ronin, and they actually gave us a ton of new details regarding the open world, the combat, and so much more. So let's go ahead and get into it. The blog starts off with saying Team Ninja has become synonymous with best-in-class action gameplay. From Ninja Gaiden to Nioh 2, the fundamental act of swinging a sword or spear or any number of deadly weapons is reliably complex and satisfying, often with a challenging yet rewarding learning curve. So the fact that Rise of the Ronin carries on with this tradition is hardly a surprise, but their latest work on the PlayStation 5 offers much more than satisfying combat. Team Ninja jumped katana first into the crowded open world space and delivers something truly unique and compelling. They continue by saying, after finishing the linear prologue, the events of which I won't spoil here, I soon found myself thrust into the game's vast open world, a first for Team Ninja. Armed with a katana, a Western style saber, a musket, and a trusty steed, I took the long route to Yokohama, scouring the countryside for crafting materials, climbing rooftops to pet cats, and freeing villages from the clutches of bloodthirsty bandits. Rise of the Ronin does a fantastic job of always keeping something curious in view. Finish one side activity and there's usually another one just out of reach to catch.
By the way, I hope that I personally didn't like the item system of Nioh, and when they try to do it like there, maybe that's a little bit too much, because you had a lot of drops that you kind of don't need, and then I didn't get into the specifics of like how to upgrade it, why to upgrade it, which stat is good. So I would hope they keep the game a little bit more simple than Nioh. Let's hope that it does that.
Your eye on. Of course, the bustling port of Yokohama is the centerpiece of this open world environment, and later Edo and Kyoto, and it's here that the game fully comes into its own. Yokohama in the late 19th century is caught between worlds, having recently been subject to American gunboat diplomacy. This is evident in the city's eclectic mix of influences: guns, swords, top hats, and kimono, and fascinating tapestry of traditional Japanese dwellings and imposing brick structures. They then continued by saying, I also acquired lodging in the city, where I was able to not only hang out and chat and give gifts to visiting companions, but also rearrange furniture, customize my Ronin's appearance, and freely reset skill points. But that right there is just the open world. Now let's get into the actual gameplay.
So again, right now I'm really not comparing it to Ghost of Tsushima. It has probably both of those worlds, but they kind of like it sounds a little bit like Nioh with the companions. So maybe they hang out in your, let's say they hang out in your house or something, and you just give them some gold or some items, and they're kind of like give you like a little bit of a bonus. I hope that those games get more and more into the RPG genre without kind of getting too much into RPG and remaining this action style combat. That would be interesting to see.
a portion that they went in depth with. They said, for those familiar with Team Ninja's recent fun and modern action classics, Rise of the Ronin places a much greater emphasis on the duel itself. The game achieves this by prioritizing parries called the counter sparks that drain your enemy's ki, or rather stamina, which in turns makes them vulnerable to gruesome critical hits. Optimal play seems to emphasize staying within a striking distance and timing your opponent's attacks to counter rather than the attack and dodge routine typical in games of this type. The combination of metal on metal clangs and bright sparks flying gives these duels a very cinematic feel, as does the speed which you can slay your foes following the counter spark. Critical hits are varied and brutal, replete with detached limbs and massive blood sprays, making counter sparks worth the significant risk to pull off. Now, some of the additional details that stuck out are the gruesome stealth kills and critical hits will terrify your opponent's companions, thus lowering their ki and making them easier to dispatch. In a similar way, slaying the more resilient enemy leaders will lower the ki of their weakened henchmen. The grappling hook can be used to hurl explosive barrels and other hazards into the direction of your opponents, as well as pull archers down from irritating vantage points. Another cool feature is parrying incoming bullets sets your sword aflame, giving your attacks a temporary damage boost, which...
So first of all, it's cool that you can kind of do some gruesome kill and the people are weakened, run away or something like that. That was always an advantage, and I guess when you have a lot of enemies around you, that can be a good point. Plus the those little things maybe make the game even more exciting, like as he said with the bullets. Maybe there are different things. Maybe you get like a, I don't know, a water blade because you run through water. Probably not, but cool thing though.
That right there is so sick. Now, Rise of the Ronin affords the player a ton of flexibility in how they approach combat encounters. You could whittle down the horde by landing headshots from afar, or first prey on vulnerable sentries using stealth strikes, and you could even carry out a surprise attack while gliding overhead. On certain missions, you're able to bring along companions with whom you've established bonds. Now, they of course will attack on their own, but you can also control these characters as you wish. The PlayStation previewer also got to experience the game's combat styles, movesets for each weapon that unlock and evolve as you progress through the game, to which there's apparently dozens to discover. Each combat style holds advantages and disadvantages against...
Once again, interesting how they want to manage your companions. So it means when you have companions, they first they need equipment, maybe, or just your equipment is translated to them. But then it doesn't feel immersive, because I want to maybe equip someone with a different weapon or different type of armor because he's my support, or maybe something like that. So I don't know, it seems more generic than probably too much RPG like.
A certain enemy weapon, and you could swap them on the fly and give you a leg up against your foes. It then said, finally, noting the game's strength, dexterity, and intelligence and skill trees can also unlock new dialogue options. In one instance, they were able to intimidate a group of pesky officials before initiating a brawl, which lowered their ki gauges at the start of the fight. In closing, they said that their time with Rise of the Ronin concluded with an aerial base infiltration, gliding through the air with 3 companions to take on a boss, and retrieve an inventor's rudimentary camera. They said this climactic mission challenged me to use all of the tools at my disposal, fling it.
To be honest, I mean, when you pull in this guy and then you stab him, like you stab him hard and he still survives, that's not that doesn't make the power fantasy, I would say. So why would you do that? Like, a little bit of a misstep here, I would say.
Environmental hazards and picking off enemies at range before facing off in a duel against a club-wielding brute. And honestly, guys, if this doesn't get you excited to play Rise of the Ronin, I don't know what will. Obviously, this game is not Ghost of Tsushima 2, it's not AC Red, but it does, however, look like an experience that's worth the time and money. Will I play it immediately whenever Dragons Dogma 2 releases? I don't know. I've been looking forward to DD2 for literally years, so I may end up sinking my teeth into DD2 before I jump into Rise of the Ronin, but I am looking forward to this game. Do you plan on playing Rise of the Ronin once it releases? Has this...
All right, that's probably the video here. Some cool and last input to the game, of course. I enjoy it. By the way, I don't think that the publisher or they did a great job to publish it on the same day like Dragons Dogma. So you kind of could prolong it for a month or something, or do it earlier, but I don't think that that was possible. I think they will lose out a lot of money, and that's sad because, of course, more money means a better game next time, hopefully. Um, so that's kind of like a bad thing. In general, I still don't know what to play. I have to say, Dragon's Dogma 2, I want to play because it sounds amazing. It sounds too good to be true, I hope, right? Because my experience could be then different. But on the other side, I want to play that game as well. And somehow it says to me, I should play that first so I can finish it, enjoy it a little bit, maybe too fast, and then it's okay. And then I have a lot of time for Dragon's Dogma, or I don't know, guys. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, let's see how it works out, and let's see what other games are there and some news. So I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.